So wouldn't you like to know what Steve Jobs is thinking right now? Getting inside the Apple CEO's head was what Nick Ciarelli did for a living when he ran ThinkSecret, a website that successfully cracked many of the company's trade secrets, much to Steve Jobs' consternation. Nick is now a technology writer at the Daily Beast. He's with us here this morning. Nick, can Steve Jobs take a victory lap yet?
Well, look, I'm actually really patient about this because I think what Apple's doing here is really creating an entirely new category, an entirely new market, and tablets haven't really resonated with consumers in the past. So I'm willing to give them a while to educate consumers about what the iPad even is.
It's interesting you say that because a lot of people have commented that the device is really cool, but they don't quite know what to do with it yet. Why is Apple not giving them more of a roadmap on how to use this device?
Well, I think for Apple, this isn't even about tablets. I think Apple really sees the iPad as the future of computing. And for a long time, even though Apple's been around for 30 years, computers are still really hard to use. And when Apple made the iPhone, it learned a lot about how to make technology really simple, and they've applied that thinking to the iPad.
Nick, I want you to elaborate on that point for a moment. The future of computing. Take us inside Steve Jobs' head. What does the iPad say about Apple's strategy as we look out to the years ahead?
Well, I mean, Apple has a really strong laptop business. But what Apple's argued here is that for the kinds of things that most people use a laptop for, email, browsing the web, running apps, for those kinds of uses, the iPad is really a more intimate experience. So I think they really see that going in the direction of the iPad.
So it doesn't necessarily displace an e-reader like the Kindle, the Nook, or the Reader?
No, it's a multi-purpose device. I think some people who were considering the Nook or considering the Kindle, may end up getting the iPad, but it's designed to do a range of things.
Nick, let's talk about the potential competition that the iPad may face. Google, so far, really is the only company to mount what you might say is a credible threat to the iPhone software and the whole user interface. Who might do it for the iPad? Well,
it's interesting. If you want to compete with the iPad, you really have to get the software right. That's what the lesson was of the iPhone. It's really all about the software. So there are some interesting things happening. Microsoft's working on some interesting tablet interfaces, but no one's announced a product yet. So I don't know who's going to end up competing with the iPad.
And Microsoft's product's not exactly sexy either, like the iPad.
Right. Well, and the other thing about the iPad is Apple controls the software, they control the hardware. They made their own processor in-house with a system on a chip. Not a lot of companies in Silicon Valley can do that. So Apple's really in a rare position here.
Let's talk, though, about the delay. I mean, you just pointed out that nobody has even made a product announcement for a rival tablet. Realistically speaking, how long does it take from announcement to delivery for a product like this, which now has such a high bar to clear if you want to compete with Apple?
There is a high bar, but there's still a whole lot of work for Apple to do. I mean, there was the launch this past weekend, but that only included the U.S. Apple still has a lot of work to do to get the iPad distributed internationally. It'll be in 9 countries later this month, and there are a lot more countries that they have to get the iPad to later this year. So,
what's the earliest that we might see some kind of device using Microsoft's rumored interface?
I'll believe it when I see it.
All right, that clearly tells you what you need to know. In terms of content, we know the Wall Street Journal charges for it. The New York Times application was one of the ones that people were applauding. At some point, New York Times will charge for it as well. How is this model of paying for apps going to work out on the iPad?
I think a lot of media companies are really, they're taking the iPad and they're experimenting with a lot of things, and there have been a lot of really innovative apps. As you said, the Wall Street Journal's app looked really cool. I think they're still waiting to see how consumers respond to paying for content on the iPad.
Nick, with about 45 seconds left, the Wall Street Journal app does look cool, but it's kind of weird in the sense that it tries to replicate the newspaper experience. They're not taking the iPad and using it as a way to recreate the newspaper. What's your take on that?
I think companies will take a lot of different approaches. What the iPad provides is it provides a larger screen that really gives app developers like the Journal or the Times a canvas to do lots of interesting things. So I think they'll try all sorts of things and we'll see what sticks.